Hello and welcome to Black Voices. I am here with the lovely Ella. I like to say Ella Turenne. Turenne. How do you actually like if you were Haitian? Well, not if you were Haitian. How would you pronounce it? Like, what's the correct pronunciation of your last name?
It's Turenne.
Turenne.
Yeah.
Yes, Turenne. Um, nous sommes ici avec Ella Turenne. Yes, who is performing her show on Wednesday, November 11th, which is my nephew's birthday, by the way. So you're performing on a great night. Um, and the title of her show is called Move tell me
Writing. It's called Writing Two Cultures.
Writing Two Cultures, Writing Two Cultures. So I'm going to read her bio. So you get to know her a little bit through that. Ella is a native New Yorker who has been in Los Angeles for 10 years. She has narrated books such as A Good Neighborhood and Remembrance, and has performed her award-winning one-woman show, Love, Locks, and Liberation, which I've seen and is amazing, internationally at festivals such as the Hollywood Fringe Festival, the Downtown Urban Arts Festival, and the United Solo Festival. She's also an activist working on mass incarceration and racial justice issues. A perpetual student, Ella recently went back to school to get her PhD in visual studies. So like this last, I mean, everything here is impressive, but that last part is like, wait, what? Like, like what are you doing? Like, so tell me what inspired you to go back to school, after all this time? PhD, that's very honorable and
No, thank
impressive.
you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Well, it's actually something that I'd been wanting to do for a long time. I've been trying for like too many years to get back into school to do this PhD. And it was like, a variety of things, life. I moved to LA, all sorts of things. But I've always wanted it because, as I said, I'm a perpetual student, and I really do love learning. And this was something that I reached a point in my career. I was a higher education administrator for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I just reached a point where I was like, okay, this is it. This is the fork in the road. Either I'm going to continue on this trajectory and I could like be a dean, or like eventually somebody was like, you should be president of this. I was like, I don't know about that.
All right.
But I really love teaching. I love research. I love doing what we call like public intellectual work, critique and making sense of media. I study media.
Mm-hmm.
That's my area.
Yes.
And we need people to be intermediaries of what's going on in the world and how our media is changing and how television and film impact us. And since I'm a filmmaker and an actor, like my desire is really to combine all those things together. I still want to be a creative, but I also want to be the person that helps make sense of all of that for other folks too. So that's what I want to do.
Beautiful. Well, I immediately connected with you once I found out that you are Caribbean, just like I am. So yes, lovely. So being stock passe,
Yeah.
so being a Haitian artist, what I mean, for me, let's say, as a Caribbean, I always like to put our stories out there. What has been your journey in that way, just wanting to represent Haitians in this industry?
This has been sort of like a lifelong mission for me. And this show is really, it's part some of my stories and experiences, and really it's my poems that some of them I've had for quite some time, some of them that are more recent because they're tied to things that have recently happened in the world, such as issues related to police brutality, right? But my mission, ultimately, I decided a long time ago when I was really coming into who I was as a person of Haitian descent was, I didn't necessarily know growing up all of my own history. And when I finally came into it, I was like, oh, like not enough people know about this. And also how we're represented in the media is is always so negative. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, what I can do as an artist is to illuminate Haitian history and culture and make sure it's accessible and make sure that people honor who we are and where we came from. And that's really the impetus of this show, just told through my own journey and my own eyes, is, you know, righting some of the wrongs, sharing some of that history and some of the pride that I have, and also some of the challenges, because it's not always easy in this country to be the child of an immigrant, to be from a different place, to have a different language. Sometimes there are some real challenges in embodying those identities, but ultimately, for me, embracing it matters more than the challenges, and I wanted to share that with people.
Yeah, I love it. That's really great. I mean, I with your first solo show, I was impressed with all of the accents that you can do and the characters that you portrayed. And you know, growing up in New York City, we have like that. These are our neighbors. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we see them all the time, and so, but not all artists can embrace that, right? So I, you know, big up to you for being able to be a sponge, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, people do ask sometimes, they're like, how can you do all those characters? I'm like, well, they're people who I lived with and grew up with. They're in me. So it wasn't that hard to really extract them, because they're people I know. They're amalgams of all the, you know, relatives and friends, teachers, family friends, all of that. And they're not people that I only know. Like, I think the reason why it resonates is because, you know, you connect with a lot of those characters and you don't have to be Haitian to, you know, the stories.
Exactly. Exactly. So how's the process going for you in rehearsal for this piece?
Yeah, you know, it's been challenging in the sense that, so this is really personal work.
Hmm.
So it's very emotionally draining because my poems are like, some of them are really hard hitting. And so to, you know, usually when I'm reading them, it's like at an event somewhere, you know, like I have it and then I read it somewhere else. But to have to continuously revisit the emotions and what's in it, so that requires like a level of stamina. And also, you know, like, it makes you vulnerable. Like, one person shows make you vulnerable,
Oh yeah.
because usually it's, you're putting yourself out there, right? So um trying to like do justice to the work and the culture and the heritage, like, you know, the people who see this who are Haitian, I'm just like, are they gonna feel like I got it right? And I felt that way about the first show too.
Really?
Oh yeah, I'm just like, oh, they're gonna be like, this is terrible. So, but I just have to, this is why it helps to have a director, because
Mhm.
then I can
Yes.
kind of like, I know that, especially when you have somebody who you trust, you have somebody who's going to tell you whether you're like on point or off center.
Hmm.
And that has helped, so sort of like assuage some of my anxiety.
Yeah. Well, so has your mother, I'm sure your mother has seen the first show. What did
Yes.
she think? What did she think of it?
She really liked it, and
Hmm.
she said she loved it. And I had so much anxiety when she went to first see the show, because she didn't see it until I had performed it like many times before she actually saw it.
Yeah.
And you know, she's like a prominent figure in the show, so I was like, ooh, if
Yeah.
she doesn't think I got her right,
Right.
that's gonna be
Right.
a
Right.
disaster. But she loved it, so that made me feel good. And even
Yeah.
doing this, like, as I've been doing this, um it has been hard, but also I feel like it's something I need to say, especially in this moment. I mean, it's kind of ironic that it's like after the election and all of that. So I definitely feel like there are things in there that need to be said, that I need to get out. And it's like the universe has put me in a position to say this, even though it's been a rough journey getting there. But
Yes.
that's part of it, right? I feel like, you know, when you're birthing something new, that it's not going to be easy, but you appreciate it more when you get to the other side.
Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah. So how is this different from, because this is sort of like a collection of spoken word, and the title of the solo show that you were working on, is it the same title?
It's the same title. And I decided to keep the title because originally it was going to be a complete drama solo show. And now it's more of this narrative with my poems. And actually the poems were the first project,
Yes.
right? So I've been working on a collection of this poem to publish as a book. With the director who I'm working with, Timothy Edwijante. He's also a poet and a publisher. And so he and I have been like scheming and planning and working on this book for a long time. And so when I realized that I realized that I need to do something different, I was like, oh, wait a minute, but these poems, like we talked and you were like, are you a poet? And I was like, well, yes, I am. And I was like, actually, that was the original project. Maybe that should be the project. And it's worked out really well because these poems do tell a story. And it's been really interesting to put what my director calls connective tissue in between them, right?
Yes.
Like that's how I've constructed the show. So it has been a very different process from doing a one-woman show where it's more theatrical. This is more, I would say, about it is about the story, but it's also about the emotions. It's about these messages that I'm trying to hit on with each of the poems. And they range from like what it means to be a child of immigrants, to what it means to be Black in America, to what it means to be Haitian and American. And each of these things is a part of my identity, and which is why I've written all of the poems that I did.
Yeah, and I think the title is apropos, writing two cultures, because that's what a lot of us immigrants, or children of immigrants do, that's it, constantly doing that, switching up. I mean, I had when I first went away to college, my roommate said to me, "Oh, I can always tell when you're talking to your mother, your father, because all of a sudden I kind of start talking like this, and she's like, what?
Like, what?
Where did that come from? But like we're writing two cultures, going back and forth.
It's a constant negotiation of like, okay, how much am I going to bring over here, and how much can I bring over here, and where do I stand in the middle? And and after a while it becomes second nature, but when you're growing up, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah. I found myself, because, before you go to school, like the first 5 years, let's say you're with your parents, and I was with my parents and mostly family.
Yes.
And so I kind of talked like my parents. And so as soon as I went to school, I realized that because they made fun of me, you know what I mean? And so then I quickly was like, okay, I'm gonna talk like this, just like y'all, because I don't want to be made fun of,
About all that in my poems, girl.
Oh, wow. Yes. Okay, well, cool. I'm excited to see it. One last thing, what would you like everyone to take away from this piece of beautiful work?
To take away, I think we each have a story that we should own, regardless of what people tell you about that story or that heritage or that ancestry, regardless of what people try to put in front of you as an obstacle based on where you come from, that your story is powerful and that it's meant to be shared. And all you can hope for is that by putting your story out there, by sharing your truth, that it will help somebody else share their truth.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much for having this chat with me. So you guys, please go to www.whitefiretheater.com. And her show is tonight, Wednesday, November 11th at 7 p.m. PSD, 10 p.m. on the East Coast. And if you buy your ticket before showtime, the link will be good for 48 hours afterwards. So there's really no excuse to see Ella Turenne in her show, Writing Two Cultures. Thank you.
Julia, I just want to give you such
Yes.
a big shout out and thank you for doing this, and not just interviewing me, but really for helping to create this platform for solo artists. This is it's really challenging work. Brian and I were joking the last time I did the show, my other show,
Mhm.
that solo work is probably one of the hardest pieces of theater that you can do. And so you've been just such a champion of it, and for you to then, create this platform for Black artists to share their stories, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm having the time of my life. This, it's just, it's exciting to be able to help, um, like you said, have this platform. And shout out to Brian for asking me to come on board with him. And but also just the joy that I see in the performers' faces after they perform, like that is priceless. Yeah, because you know that feeling after you perform and you've accomplished it. It's like no other. So, all right. Thank you so much, Ella.
All right.
And I'll see you on your show.